All right, David, are you good to go?
Yep, all set.
All right, we're recording and ready to go whenever you are.
Okay, if you get updates on anybody signing in, let me know. But with that, we'll get started. Good afternoon, my name is Tim Voss, and I'm the chair of the Historic Conservation Board. I'd like to take a minute to remind everyone about the rules of this proceeding. This proceeding is at all times governed by the rules of procedure adopted by the board on September 26, 2011, amended March 23rd, 2015, and last amended March 9th, 2020. A copy of the rules of procedure is available for review online. All those planning to testify today, which does not include those solely making arguments such as attorneys, will be asked to take an oath administered by the board's attorney when they testify. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, and as such, the board reserves the right to deliberate in private. The Ohio rules of evidence do not apply to this hearing. However, professional rules of conduct do apply, and candor to the tribunal is required. The board members are citizen volunteers and are not paid for their service. They are treated as public officials under Ohio law, and any attempt to influence them, including but not limited to bribery, intimidation, retaliation, which may include contacting your employer in an attempt to exert influence, is punishable as a crime. All should be aware that this meeting is being tape recorded. Therefore, please speak clearly into your microphone and state your name and address for the record. In the event of any technical difficulties with the video conferencing technology, I may continue or postpone this hearing at my discretion. All participants providing testimony must have both camera and audio features turned on in order to participate. With that, we will proceed to the first item, 544 Liberty Hill. Ms. Johnson.
544 Liberty Hill is a duplex where it's two single-family homes side by side. This is on one parcel. The request is before us is for 2 roof decks at the front, with the recessed roof deck leaving all chimneys and leaving the sides and detailing it similar to how we've approved them in the past. They will be creating new openings and detailing those to be appropriate to the building and to the style. They are also requesting a dormer addition on the rear to raise the roof to make the attic have more livable, or the current 3rd floor to have more livable space and more usable space. The dormer will be a frame dormer. The pitch of the roof will not go further or taller than the existing pitch of the roof. And they will have simple detailing on the back with raising the windows, the existing 3rd floor windows. So raising the existing windows to have double hung windows rather than just the fixed or awning windows that are currently there at that level. Both applications for both the rooftop dormer and the roof deck, staff does find that these are appropriate treatments. They have followed the guidelines and followed what we feel is appropriate in both detailing and massing, and that neither imitates the original, and the material change on the rear dormer does help provide distinction between the new and the old while using appropriate details. So staff does recommend approval for a certificate of appropriateness for proposed dormer addition and roof deck additions openings per plans of N. Jeffrey Watterson and Associates dated 9/22/2021, with the following condition: that the building permit must be issued within 2 years or the COA shall expire.
Thank you. Mr. Fiegels, Doug Fiegels.
Mr. Fiegels, could you unmute?
Yeah, I thought you had muted me. I'm good now. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Do you have anything to add to what Ms. Johnston's told us?
No, sir. I think she stated it very eloquently. It's just functionality for that third floor is really what we're after, and looking to capture those amazing city views that we would have at that rooftop open deck there. And of course, there's no visual from the street, so there'd be no, there's no.
Having gone this far, we need to get you sworn in. I'm sorry.
Mr. Fiegels, could you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay,
Sorry.
if you could just restate that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so as Beth stated there, we were going to maintain the architectural integrity of what they're asking for, and I think we've gone through that process quite well. And then on the front of the buildings I just mentioned, we're going to have the open terrace to capture some of those beautiful city views from that location. So that's really about it. We're excited to go through the process and get the work started.
Thank you very much. Do any board members have any questions for the staff or the applicant? I have nobody else that's checked in that's signed up. So absent that, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness as laid out by staff.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Mr. Sunderman,
Aye.
Ms. Smith Dobbins,
Yes.
Ms. McKinsey,
Aye.
Mr. Weiss, Mr. Weiss, Mr. Zelasco.
Aye.
Okay. Item number 1 is approved. Item number 2, 210 West 14th Street. Ms. Johnson.
Yes, the request before the board is for 210 West 14th Street. This is in the Over the Rhine Historic District in the CCA zoning. They are requesting a single-story addition to expand the restaurant on the first floor and zoning relief for an increase on height of the side privacy fence. They are requesting an increase from the max permitted height of 6 feet with a 2-foot variance to allow for an 8-foot fence along the side west property line. Property at 210 West 14th Street is the Symphony Hotel. The business spans 3 addresses from 210 to 214 West 14th Street. The building has an eating and drinking establishment on the first floor with a kitchen and a 10-guest hotel room on the upper stories. The request is for an addition at the rear portion of the lot behind the existing facility. While it will be a 1-story addition, it does have vaulted ceilings, and so the addition does equal approximately a two-story height. So it does go up, but it does not go above the existing historic buildings. The building in the middle of the complex is an infill building that had been previously approved by the HCD. There will be slight visibility of that behind the existing 1-story addition that connects the 2 existing historic buildings. This will be set back from the front facade and will really only be visible if you're standing directly in front. However, as it is set so far back and it is a simple wall with lap siding, staff does not feel that this is an inappropriate height for the addition. In regards to the 8-foot fence, the 8-foot fence will be at the west side of the property. They are doing an 8-foot fence at the request in an agreement with the neighbor directly to the west of them. This is a residential use building to the west, and so this will just be able to provide extra privacy both for the residents as well as for the use of the hotel. The 6-foot fence will only be a portion of that property line, as the addition does go to the property line in the rear. So the addition, or the 8-foot fence, will only be at the front. So in regards to the addition, So it does take up a large part of the rear of the lot. However, again, it is shorter than the historic buildings on the property and set back from the street, so it does not overwhelm the existing historic fabric. The colors of the new addition and the materials of the new addition are appropriate. They will be matching, the colors will be matching the existing color scheme on the building, and the addition is a largely frame addition. Within the historic district, additions often were framed historically, and so this is an appropriate treatment for this location as well. So staff does recommend approval for a dimensional variance of 2 feet to allow for an 8-foot tall fence on the west property line for plans submitted by Harmony Architects dated 10/20/2021. And staff does recommend approval for a certificate of appropriateness for 210 West 14th Street per material submitted by Harmony Architects dated 10/20/2021 with the following condition: that building permits must be issued within 2 years of the decision date or the COA shall expire. Tim, you are muted.
Sorry. We'll hear from the applicant, Nina Judd.
Ms. Judd, would you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
What would you like to add that Ms. Johnson has not told us?
I was the architect for the infill and have worked carefully to coordinate this addition with the infill that we did a number of years ago. Same colors, same general treatment, paying attention to how it looks from the rear, because the alley does get used as well as from the front. I'm open for questions.
Okay. We have no one else signed up. Are there questions from the board for the applicant or for staff? In which case, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve both the zoning relief and the certificate of appropriateness as laid out by staff.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Sunderman,
Aye.
Ms. Smith-Dobbins, Miss Smith-Dobbins.
You were muted again.
Oh.
On that one. You're good now. Was that, is it an aye?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. McKenzie,
Aye.
Mr. Zelasco.
Aye.
Do we have Mr. Weiss here?
Yeah, I don't think he's connected to the audio, so I've been putting those down as abstentions on the official vote count.
The chair votes aye. Item number 2, 210 West 14th Street is approved. Brings us to item number 3, 446 Milton Street. Ms. Johnson?
Sorry, I was on mute. This is for 446 Milton Street. This is in the Prospect Hill Historic District. The request is for a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of the contributing building on the site under an economic hardship claim. 446 is a contributing building to the Prospect Hill Historic District. It is a frame building set back from the street. Its building date is 1870, making it one of the older buildings on the block and within the district. The proposal again is to demolish the building. This building has not had any issues, has not been issued for demolition from the Director of Buildings and Inspections. There are current orders on the property, however, demolition is not one of them. The property is not listed as a non-contributing building in the Prospect Hill Historic District, so it is considered a contributing building. In regards to economic hardship, the applicant argues that there is no economically viable use that can be made of the building. They have provided a pro forma for the rehabilitation cost. Their rehabilitation costs, including an 18% overhead and profit, exceed $1,034 a square foot. Per city policy, the Department of Community and Economic Development conducted an independent analysis of the possible economic returns on the proposed development of 446 Milton Street Avenue. While they do believe that the proposed cost and post-construction sale price are high, they ran analysis with numbers that are more reflective of cost and sales data from similar projects. They also ran an analysis where they used the reduced purchase price to account for an over 50% increase in purchase price within a 20-month span. Finally, they ran a break-even scenario. Their analysis states the first 3 rehabilitation scenarios all result in economic loss for the property owner. Given the deteriorated condition of the property, any reuse will require substantial stabilization. The applicant supports this claim with a report submitted by a structural engineer and estimate for stabilization costs exceeding $500,000. The cost to stabilize and rehabilitate the building in compliance with the historic conservation guidelines will exceed the potential value created by the project. Furthermore, based on observed construction cost data for comparable projects in Cincinnati, the hard cost per square foot assumed in the break-even analysis is not attainable. DCED analysis concludes that the denial of the requested COA would deprive the property of its economic use. DCED analysis was attached in your packets. The current property owner owned the property since August of 2020 and has not submitted any work to improve the property. They were issued orders on 8/27/2021 for being out of compliance with BBML standards and licensing. While many of these issues have predated the current owner, changing ownership does not absolve the property of a demolition by neglect issue. The property has several code complaints about the condition and lack of maintenance of the property dating back to 2006. The current orders on the buildings were also in your packet. The applicants did have a structural evaluation completed. The evaluation did not state that the structural issues were infeasible to repair. While they did state that it was cost prohibitive, no cost was provided for the repairs within the structural engineering report. As previously discussed, DCED reviewed the application materials and analyzed the performance materials that the applicant provided. Their analysis based on other projects in the area in similar or worse condition and market conditions concluded that rehabilitation of the property would not be feasible and would not create a reasonable economic return. Finally, while the current owners have owned the property since August 2020, the property did have issues with collapsed sewer, maintenance, overgrowth, and water infiltration since 2006. Deferred maintenance of previous owners is still the responsibility of new owners, and lack of maintenance from previous owners does not constitute a does constitute a self-created hardship. So with that, because the Department of Community and Economic Development reviewed it and analyzed it and supports the applicant's economic hardship claim, staff does recommend approval of a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of the contributing building at 446 Milton Street with the following condition: that the demolition permit will be issued concurrently with the building permit for a new structure on the site.
Thank you. All right, do we have the applicant available?
Mr. Papademos, just need you to unmute.
Good afternoon. Everybody can hear me?
Yes, we can. Could you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
What would you like to add?
First of all, I wanted to thank Beth for preparing all this report. We have been back and forth for a few months now, and she's been very helpful to kind of make me understand what is happening on the site with the building, with the history. And for that, I really wanted to help you, Beth. Thank you a lot for this. As far as the building itself, what I can really say is that after the civil engineer, myself, and a structural engineer have separately reviewed the building, every time we're just finding something totally new with the building, that it was in very bad condition. And our main objective was originally to kind of make something good of this building. But the further we're investigating We're realizing that from a structure point of view, sewer, water, anything that we could find was very fast deteriorating. And so after we talked a little bit with the general contractor, we got the advice from the structural engineer, a soil engineer, and the surveyor. We kind of suggested to the owner that the best kind of a course of action was to demolish the building and try to build something as easy and comfortable for the site as we could. And there is where we are right now. Like Beth explained, we'd like to request the demolition of this building and see if we can create something good, something new, something that will be safe for the neighbors, but also especially the two houses that are on either side of this 446 Milton Road. I'm open for any questions or clarifications you might need. I have a lot of pictures, but again, anything that you might like to ask me, I'm here.
Thank you. All right. We have questions from the board for the applicant or for staff.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm more curious than a question, but I look at this transfer history. And according to this, there were 3 transactions on the same day that increased the value of the property from $100,000 to $169,000. And I'm wondering how that could possibly be.
Unfortunately, I would not be in a position to answer you anything financial. As far as the structure architecture, I can definitely help, but as far as the financial aspect of it and those transactions, I will not be in a position to give you a good answer right now.
Okay.
I can definitely ask. I'm not exactly who I should need to be asking for that, either the realtor or the owner, but I will be more than happy to ask them this question directly.
I'm fine.
Okay. Ms. Johnson, you said something and I just wanted to come back to it. The deficiencies in the building at sale are not erased and carry forward to the new owner. Did I hear you correctly?
But as in regards to the responsibility regarding a demolition by neglect?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So that does not, just because of transfer of ownership, does not absolve owners of a demolition by neglect issue.
We're being asked to approve the demolition of one of the older structures in the area, and I don't question, but that it's in very bad shape. And I hear Mr. Papadopoulos talking about discovering new things. But there's a piece of me, and I think it comes back around to what Mr. Sunderman said. We have a house that has no economic possibilities, no positive economic possibilities, and we're being asked to demolish on that basis that sold for purportedly $169,000. I'm confused, and whereas I don't discount what economic development went through, I still can't get my arms all the way around how we get to, if we assume the original sales price of $100,000, all happening on one day, adding up to 169, either the last two assumptions would put this into a positive cash position. So when I will freely admit that I read through this. and probably should have spent more time. I certainly saw on the pro forma extreme amounts that were projected to go into stabilization. And I'm just, from what I see, all the wood structure is badly damaged, but I don't, I didn't see in the pictures the extent of the structural work that would have to be done to foundation. Now, clearly it's on a hillside, but I guess my concern is, was there no understanding of what this was going to take at point of acquisition? And if there was, then what little cover there is for new discovery gets very shaky for me. So I'm not at all comfortable with this right now.
Might I add to that, Mr. Chairman, that apparently, according to the transfer history, the current owner has owned this house for 11 years.
So, Mr. Chair, I do have a question for Ms. Johnson. Can you determine, or can you comment on how much of the house is actually still historic? I mean, because of the site, it's hard for me to tell what.
So the front porches of the bottom portion of the house has been enclosed, but otherwise it is historic. I don't have any historic photos of that. So there have been some alterations, but substantially, from what I can tell, without having gone and done an investigation on the property, there is still substantial historic material at the building. Yeah,
you're assuming window sizes were pretty much as originally constructed.
Might I say I apologize? I checked the dates on the transactions, and they haven't even owned this house for a year. I apologize for that.
I personally think that this is borderlining on demolition by neglect, but I think this is probably in really bad shape, and I don't know that the structural repair estimates are unreasonable.
I don't know that they are either. I just, as I say, am always contributing buildings being torn down, sort of is my hot button issue. But all right, other questions or comments?
We have no plans for what's going to go there once demolition happens, if we approve that?
So to answer your question, no, nothing has been submitted, and that is why I have put the condition that the demolition permit would be issued concurrently with building permits for a new structure on the site. So if something happens and they decide not to move forward with building a new building on the site, then the building would remain. The building has not been determined to be a public nuisance or a hazard to the public. So the building would still be subject to property maintenance code enforcement actions until a new building can be approved. That new building would have to be approved by the Historic Conservation Board.
So
thanks.
Basically what we're doing is telling them they can have a permit, assuming they come back with a new structure which we approve for the site. Is that my understanding of your condition?
Yes.
Well, clearly that is my understanding. Is that your understanding of your condition? I'm sorry.
Yes, that is, yes. Yes, on both fronts.
Got it. All right, other questions or comments?
Ms. Johnson, could you speculate, and this is probably unfair, if you go back and look at the 1981 Sanborn map, it's cited very unusually compared to the rest of Milton Street. Have you run across anything, other projects or other history that you might know about the street as to why it is such an oddity?
So that was one of the first buildings built on the block. And so a lot of the other properties were then subdivided subsequently from the building of that property. So oftentimes when you have a building on a street that is set back further than the most, that's usually a very easy indication that it's probably one of the earlier buildings on the block. And that is the case with this one.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Then I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness as laid out by staff.
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Sunderman,
Aye.
Ms. Smith Dobbins,
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie,
Really hate to lose another contributing building, but I do think that this is warranted. Aye.
Mr. Zelasco.
Aye.
Has Mr. Weiss come to us?
No, I think he's left the meeting.
Got it. The chair votes no. There's just enough questions here in my mind, and it's surely, I just hate to lose that building. So item number 3, 446 Milton Street is approved. All right, that brings us to the October COA approvals. Ms. Johnson, I had one question. There are a couple of them on there, and they may have been on earlier, and my brain is turning to vegetable matter as we get closer to the holiday. When there's a tax credit project that comes through, what is your expectation? What is the practice of the staff as far as getting approvals from us, or does that really reside with the state at that point?
So it will depend on the scope of the work. So for example, if they have an addition, they would still be required to come to the Historic Conservation Board. If there's zoning relief associated with the project, that would still be required to come to the Historic Conservation Board. It does not absolve them of that process. Most of the time when we specifically note that it's a historic HTC or historic tax credit project, within our comments in our comments with the permit at staff level, it's usually mostly window work and then simple facade work. There really isn't any additions, because that would still be required to come before the board. And so we usually just make a note of it within our staff approvals. Often they're giving us the part 2s of what they're doing, but it's just a good kind of reminder for us as we go through the approvals and the different revisions that it's a historic tax credit project.
Okay, that was the only thing I noticed on those. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on the October COAs? I will make a motion that we approve the staff approvals from October. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Sunderman,
Aye.
Ms. Smith Dobbins,
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie,
Aye.
Mr. Zelasco. Chair votes aye. Do we have any other business?
We do not. I do want to let you know before next month, the next month's packet, we will be including an update to applications Cassandra, David, and I have been working on. I'll say it's probably a significant change, but not a significant change at the same time to our application. As you guys know, we currently have zoning relief application and a COA application, and we're looking at trying to combine them into one application for the Historic Conservation Board to help absolve some confusion often that we face, and Cassandra always does an amazing job of explaining to people, but we're hoping that this new application will maybe streamline things a little bit in the applicant's mind. And so that will all be in there, and we'll explain the changes at next board meeting, so you guys can understand kind of exactly the thought process and what we've been kind of talking about behind the scenes. And then our hope is that if you guys are all on board and okay it, then we will implement that starting January 1st of 2022.
Okay. We look forward to looking through that. All right, any other business? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.